Hi guys, my name's Trey Morgan. I am the senior minister or pulpit minister for the Church of Christ in Childress, Texas. We're a community of about 6,000 people, pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. We're a very rural country church, but we are a church that is very healthy. Attendance 80 to 90% capacity every Sunday. Even that a couple of weeks ago, post-COVID, once we've started returning, and we continue to grow. I've been here 18 years. We continue to look for ways to do outreach, and we continue to do outreach, and we found some things that work, and I'm going to share some things with you today. Part of my lesson today is to talk about how to invite people to church, how to get people interested in your church, how to do community outreach. Once someone comes to your church, what do you do? That sort of thing. So we're going to talk about some really practical stuff today. Some of the stuff that I wish we could do some Q&A on, because some of it will be some, you may want to email me at some point and go, how did you do this, to follow up a little bit more. But I want to share with you a little bit of just some practical things that have worked and worked well for us. I'm a big believer in Matthew chapter 25, down about verse 14, where Jesus is telling the story of the parable of the bag of gold, or parable of the talents. And I think one of the things that we miss in this story is one of the things that I want to point out today. Jesus says, it'll be like a man going on a journey who called servants together and entrusted his wealth to them. He gave one 5 bags of gold, one 2 bags, and another one 1 bag, each according to his own ability. And then he went on a journey. The man who had 5 bags went at once, put his money to work, gained 5 more bags. The man with 2 bags went, put his money to work, gained 2 more bags. But the man who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and there put his master's money. Now, we know the story. When the master returns, he goes to the man, calls all 3 servants together and says to the man with 5 bags, what did you do with my gold? And the man says, here's your 5 bags, and I put them to work, and here's 5 more bags. And he says, well done, good and faithful servant. The man with 2 bags also doubled his bags of gold. And again, the master says, well done, good and faithful servants. The man with 1 bag buried his and brought it back exactly like it was, that he was entrusted to it, and said, here's your, I know you work hard, and here's your money back exactly like you gave it to me. And the master said, you wicked servant. Threw him into a place of weeping and gnashing of teeth. We all know that story and what takes place in that story. And we all know we don't want to be the one servant. We oftentimes preach that lesson about talents and about using what God gave you. But I want to talk about this from a standard of churches. Some churches, God said, boy, go out and do evangelism. Go do outreach. Here's your talents. Use them. And they're 5 bags, and some 2 bags, and some 1, but to each according to their own ability. The thing that I want you to catch more than anything else, the thing that you can't miss, is that the man with 5 bags and the one with just less actually risked something, took a risk to increase their master's stuff. And we have become churches that are afraid of risk. We have become churches much like the 1 bag of gold man who says, I just want to take what God's given me. I want to put it over here and keep it safe. The saved people we want to keep saved, but we're not going to worry about the unsaved people. We'll just do what God sends our direction. And we have kind of become Christians, and we have become churches that are a lot like the 1 talent man, the 1 bag of gold man who says, man, Lord, I don't want to take a risk. And I think Jesus has always been big on people who are risk takers. Jesus has always praised the risk takers. Think about this for a second. The woman who reached out and touched the hem of Jesus' garment, he called her daughter and said, you're healed. Your faith has healed you. Why would he do that? The only woman he ever called daughter, And he praised her, because of her faith, because she was willing to take a risk. You remember the four friends who ripped the hole off the roof of the ceiling and let their friend down through the roof into the house in front of Jesus, and Jesus saw their faith, not the man on the mat, saw their faith as they took a huge risk at ripping open the house and letting the man or the friend down. And I remind you, Jesus has always been big on people who took risks, and churches have just become people who are comfortable saying, but we've always done it this way. Or, like I have said many times, the famous last 8 words of every church just before they close their door, dead as a hammer, are, but we've never done it that way before. We have got to stop being churches unwilling to take some risks. We'll talk about what that means a little bit more as we go, but we've got to get out of our comfort zone. The church in Childress has done a good job getting out of their comfort zone in a lot of different areas, and it has done a great amount of outreach in our community. We as churches and as individuals and as Christians have got to get out of our comfort zone. You can pray for faith all day long. You can pray for visitors to come to your church all day long. But until you get out of your comfort zone and go out and reach some, you've actually got to put in some work there. We can't sow seed in our own auditorium and expect it to grow. You got to get out in the community and actually do something. And so I want to talk a little bit about maybe trying some new things, or I'm kind of scared to use the word, but I'm going to say it, change. I'm going to say some things about change for just a second. I don't want you to freak out over this. Nobody's asking you to change anything biblically, scripturally. But I want to talk about change for a second and some things that you need to know about change. Change is very healthy. If our bodies didn't change, if our kids didn't change, it would be a sign of something wrong with it. Churches also need to change. Oftentimes things that we do need to change. How we do things need to change. Honestly, you can't do outreach in 2021 like you did in 2011. It's not going to work. I have a friend who's a business owner here in Childress, and he bought a local business. He's successful what he does, but he bought a business going out of business because they weren't doing business, and they were going to. And I asked him, I said, why are you buying a business that is closing their doors because they can't pay for their employees, and they can't pay? It's a business that's dying. And he said, well, they're still doing business today like they did in 2009, and he said you can't do business in 2021 like you did in 2009. Things have changed. Same with churches. You can't do outreach like you did in 2009. Gospel meetings, revivals don't work like they did in the old days. It's just not going to happen. People don't want you knocking on their doors. I don't want you knocking on my door inviting me to your church. But there are other ways that we can do outreach in our community that is going to bless others. Now, I remind you, anytime I talk about the word change, make sure it's biblical change. You don't change just to change, but don't fear change. Meaning, don't be the person who says, "But we've never tried it that way before." That is a killer phrase, and sometimes you have to try stuff. Sometimes you have to be unsuccessful with stuff in order to know, no, this didn't work. But you'll never know it until you try it. Be gentle with change. Nobody's coming in saying, hey, next week you need to be doing this, this, and this. But what we are saying, or what I am saying, is you need to look at some ways in which you can change some stuff to begin to do some outreach better in your community. Communicate these things to your church and to your people. Things don't change overnight. It takes a while to change things. And understand that when you do change things, sometimes people aren't always happy about it. We've changed everything from Bible class times to worship times to Sunday night services, to how we do Sunday night services, to when we do Sunday night services, to if we do Sunday night services. And there's always going to be somebody that's not got a great opinion of the way that you're doing things. But if you're successful in doing them, if it's a biblical thing, and if it's not something unscriptural, if you can bless people and if you can do outreach with it, that's what you need to be doing. So let me give you a few tips, all right? A few things that we've done in the Childress Church that other people are using as well that we feel like is successful things that you can do. Number one, find a new way to bring people into your building. Gospel meetings, inviting people into a special speaker for a gospel meeting or revival. Replace those. Replace those with a Friends Day. Replace those with a workshop. a workshop that is needed in your community. For example, family workshops, marriage workshops, financial workshops. You will have people from the community come in droves for those things right there. They're interested in that. Get something that brings them in where they can go, hey, these folks are really nice people. And someday you plant a seed that when they start looking for a church home, or you start reaching out to them and they'll go, maybe we ought to try going to church there. There are churches all the time realizing what we are learning is that you will have tons of local visitors if you will have a marriage conference at your church for the community. The community is looking for help with marriages and families and financial things, and they're not finding answers, and the church has to step up and go, we'll do that. So find ways to get people into your building so that they'll know that you care about them. Let me give you another example. For 6 weeks in the fall, we do what we call community classes here in Childress. We have at our building on Wednesday nights during our Bible class time from 7 to 8 o'clock, community classes, meaning we have 4 or 5 classes that we invite the community in. A marriage class, family class, parenting class, financial class, sometimes a class taught by one of our doctors on good health, classes that help people. We tell them, come on, sign up for these, bring your kids, we'll provide childcare. Childcare is called Bible class. And we have 6 weeks for them folks to get in and get to know our people, for their kids to come to Bible class and get to know us a little bit better. And before you know it, the next thing you know, the 6 weeks is up and they're going, hey, what else do y'all offer? And my kids want to come back to class on Wednesday nights. And we have made an outreach and had conversions from community classes. But find new ways to bring people into your building. Let me say this. This is going to sound harsh, but I'm going to be honest. The Great Commission is not turn on the lights, unlock the doors on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock, and tell people, hey, we're here if you want to come to church. That is not the Great Commission. But too many churches feel good that, hey, people know we're here and they can come if they want. The Great Commission is go, not invite people in. You go and bring people in. You find different ways. Another thing that we've done, besides getting people into our building through different activities and such, and we have had great outreach to families in this area, is we have gotten active in mission works, meaning we don't write checks for mission works that we aren't involved in. Meaning if we support you on the mission field, we plan on not only coming, but bringing a big group of our church to come work. So be prepared to come have us. If you can't do that, if you don't want us to visit with you, if you don't want us to bring a team down to work for you, then we're not what you're looking for in the way of supporters. But if you are, we're willing to come to work. Over 50%, actually close to 65% of our church have been on short-term missions in the past 15 years. They have gone to Honduras, they have gone to Mexico, they have gone to Africa, we have gone to stateside works, but we have gone to mission works. And you take your average lay person who sits in the seat on Sunday and you take them on a mission trip, they come home going, we need to be doing this at home. We need to be reaching our community. Some of the best outreach we have done has been in our community because we took a mission trip somewhere else and somebody has come back and said, why are we not doing that here? And we started. So make sure you do that. We've actually built a couple of houses in Childress and given them away to some poor families in Childress that were below the poverty income. We've honestly changed the way the community looks at us, which is really, really good. And what I mean is you'll understand this, that 20 years ago, if somebody had said, you go to the Church of Christ, oh, y'all are the ones that you fill in the blank, right? I was caught in the grocery store the other day by a woman that I didn't recognize. I thought I knew just everybody in our community, but she said, you're the minister at the Church of Christ, aren't you? And I wasn't sure what she wanted, and I kind of hesitantly said, yes, ma'am, I am. And she said, aren't you the guys that, and in my head, I started with all the list of stuff. Don't have instruments. Believe you're the only ones going to heaven. All the negative stuff and some baggage that has been said about us in the past. I thought, where's she going with this? And her words were, aren't y'all the people who are always doing things in the community for others? Man, that made me feel good. she rounded a little corner, and I did a little jig right there in the aisle, and gave God thanks for giving me a little encouragement right there. But we are changing the way the community looks at us, because we're doing Watts. Watts is short for We Are the Sermon, WATS. And on Sunday nights, we go out and work in our community, bring trailers and pickups, we mow lawns, we haul off trees, we clean up lots, we carry out trash. We work not for just our church people, but we want to work for community people, and community people are noticing. And so we are going into the world, and we are being the sermon. We are the sermon. We've planted a community garden. We had a big lot of land across the street from the building, and we were like, what are we going to do with this? Someday we want to build a building, but it ain't happening for a few years to build a family life center. And so we dug it up, and we planted a garden, and we put it out on Facebook about once every 2 weeks, and I go, garden's ready, come pick, and I look out, and there are people from our community everywhere picking out of our community garden. It's a wonderful, wonderful way to do outreach and change the way the community looks at you. I'll say another statement that sounds a little harsh, but it's real. If the only thing the community knows about your church is where it's located, then you're failing in your job as a church. Let me say that again. If the only thing that your church, your community knows about your church is where it's located, you are failing as your job as a church in your community. You need to be doing outreach. You need to be reaching out to young families, young kids. We are in the process of working on an after-school program right now to help families that need a place for their kids to go after school. Look for different ways to do outreach in your community. We've built a food box. We got a box in our parking lot that we keep full, and people come by and get food out of the food box so that they can have some food when they need some at the last minute. Just different ways that we are trying to reach community people. Another thing that we've done, I'll throw out there, is we have realized, much like you, I hope you've realized this, that online is a great mission field. And in the past year, we have had, as churches, to go online and do sermons and teaching, and the Children's Church has done a lot of great outreach through this. Once we reopened both in the summer or the fall, and then we reopened again in January after a closure, we have had numerous new families. And one of the reasons that we've done this, or we've had new families and visitors from our community, is we did outreach during quarantine. We did sermons from our table, like I'm doing right here with you. We didn't go back to the building and try to look all churchy and preach to an empty auditorium and lead singing to nobody that was there. I did Bible studies live with people on Sunday mornings, on Wednesday nights. Started a Thursday night Bible study to where on Thursday nights at 8, I turn on Facebook Live and we have a little Bible study. Thousands of people show up, and as long as they show up, we're going to keep doing it. And it's an outreach to the community and to the fields that are white unto harvest that are online, and we need to be a better job stepping up and doing that. And so realize we've got to do a good job with our Facebook Live, with our live feeds for our services on Sundays. People so long will only put up with low quality stuff. I'm not saying you have to have the best stuff to have the best live feed, but I'm saying if your live feed isn't good, they'll turn and go somewhere else after a while. But learn to do outreach through what we're doing right here. Use Facebook Live and use YouTube videos and use online things to reach out. Let me tell you about some other things that are really good that are once we get some visitors in. As I told you, we're having multiple new families every Sunday, and anytime we have a visitor, we try to do a good job at greeting them. We have certain people that their job is to find people they don't know, and we've told our people, hey, 3 minutes every Sunday, you need to find somebody you don't know real well and go welcome them and talk to them before you go find your friends that you hadn't seen all week long. And so we have tried really hard to do outreach through friendship. I noticed Sunday we had a woman I did not know. I'd never met her for the first time at services, and she came in. She was a single lady, and we had two single women grab her and say, hey, come sit with us. And I love that. And we had several people go over and introduce themselves to her. and that is just really, really important. We always try to get a little information. We have a visitor's card, much like everybody does, and we ask folks to please fill out a visitor card. Once we have some information on a family or a couple or somebody that has visited, I always contact them the next day via text message, through email, or through Facebook, and just say, we were honored to have you. We were so glad that you came. If you have any questions about the service, we'd love to answer those, or if you can come back sometime, we would love for you to come back and let us again meet your needs for spiritual needs at church. And so we do outreach that way. Once you've come 2 or 3 times, please understand where I'm coming from. We kind of accept you as ours, and what I mean is we're going to treat you as family. We're going to welcome you, and we're going to go, glad you're here. We are happy that we do friendship evangelism. And if I can say that, say it this way, is we've had a family that have a Catholic background that have been worshiping with us for over a year. And when they first started coming, they said, can we come? We're Catholics. And we said, absolutely, we'd love to have you. But every week we treat them like they're us. We welcome them. We let them know we're glad that they're here. We treat them like family in hopes that they will become family. I have talked to them, 2 or 3 times and said, hey, anytime you want to study, I'm here. One of the young ladies, I talked at one time about a Bible study, and we had a lesson one time where we brought up baptism, and she said, I was baptized as a child. I don't need to be baptized again. I said, that's fine, but if you get a chance, sometime if you have some questions, I'd love to talk to you about it a little bit more. 6 weeks later, she came back to me again, and she said, okay, I'm ready to talk. I was honored to baptize her and her family, and watch them accept the Lord and become followers of Jesus one Sunday afternoon when everybody was gone from the building. But that happened because we treated them like we loved them and like they were a part of us, even though their name might not have been on the roll. The week 2 that they got there, we treated them like they were our family. And if they were gone for a couple of Sundays, I'd call them and go, where you been? I've been missing you. Treat people like they are family. We want to do a good job at greeting people, inviting people, not embarrassing people. We want to answer what questions that they have when it comes to our church. Have a good online presence. Have a good web page. I find it interesting. I'll say this: we're the only church in Childress that has a web page. Everybody's got a Facebook page, but we have people all the time that go, "Hey, we came to check y'all out because we couldn't find any other churches." Remember the old church signs out on the highway, and people would passing through town, they would a couple of miles out go, oh, Church of Christ down there on the right, got to turn left at the courthouse, or turn right at the courthouse and go down 2 blocks, and they're there. Church signs are, now we have Facebook and we have Google Maps, and you can find whatever you want to, but you better have an online presence, because online is where people are they're gonna learn about who you are. And have some lessons out there and do a good job with some online presence. Those are always valuable things that's got to happen for new visitors and people that you're greeting. Make your Sunday morning services. We try really hard to make them very seeker sensitive, meaning we try very simple lessons. We try to make everything as if most of our congregation, honestly, I'm trying to come up with a figure, probably 60% didn't grow up in the churches of Christ. They are all converts. And so many things, and a lot of them didn't grow up going to church, period. And so we think they know, my wife always tells me, I'll put something on the board about, hey, I'm in 1 Corinthians, and I'll just have on the board first COR, and she'll go, hey, there's some people here that don't know what that means. And I forget that. There's some people sometimes that I'll mention a Bible story, and my wife will remind me, there's some folks here that don't know that Bible story. You can't just mention it and move on. You're going to have to tell it. So don't think everyone else is at your spiritual level. In fact, the best thing you can do is when you have a new visitor, meet them on their spiritual level. Don't require them to come to your level before they can be a part of who you are. You meet them on their spiritual level and join them on their journey as they grow and everything else. I honestly feel like in our area, in the Texas Panhandle, I really think 30, maybe 40 churches in the next 10 years will be gone, completely gone, because it's just the direction we're going. Church is on a decline. You got little communities where you've got 12 members and they're all 75 and older. We as churches have got to step up and take some risks. We as churches have got to step up and go, we got to do something a little bit different. We can't keep doing things the way we've always done them and expect it to continue on the way that it has. We need to do a better job as churches in doing outreach in our community. We've got to get out of our building. You go into all the world, that's what happens when you leave the building on Sundays. And so we have got to get that through to our people, that we are going to be people who are going to take some risk and try some new things at doing outreach in our community. You know, there are three kinds of churches. Someone said there are risk takers. That's what we need to be. There are caretakers, and those are the churches that are dying. They're the ones that go, hey, we're just kind of happy and content doing what we've always done. I promise you, there's not any growth in those churches if something doesn't happen quick. It's not going to be good. And then there's undertaker churches, and those are the ones that are within a few years of shutting their doors. Now, I don't know who you are that's listening. I don't know if you're a minister, an elder, just a church person, just a Christian who is listening. But let me say, leaders need to step up and do something. Elders, if you're sitting there and you're just going, hey, we just need to find a minister who can do this. It's not about the minister. It's about you guys. The elders have got to step up and become leaders. And they've got to lead their churches by example. You cannot get your church will never be an outreach church if its leaders are not going to do outreach. And you have got to step up and do just that. It is not about finding a new minister, and if you find the right one, your church will grow. It starts with, yes, a minister, but it also starts with elders and church leadership. Step up. And when you find a minister that's doing a good job, you love him, you pay him, you take care of him, and you accept him into that leadership of going, we're a team, you are not a hired man, you are a team, and let's figure out how we can grow together. We're all on the same team. And if you've got somebody that is good doing outreach on your ministry team, man, let them run with the ball. Don't be so scared that you're just going, hey, we got to keep our thumb on this person. Let them run with the ball. All right? Let them make some moves. Let them do something. We don't want to be churches that say, but we've never done it that way before. We want to try and do different things, to do new outreach, to try to do things to find people in our community that need to hear about Jesus. I'm telling you, the communities around you, they're looking for some place for information on marriage help, family help, parenting help, blended family help, financial help. And if you'll offer things in your Bible classes and in workshops, they'll show up. And then they'll continue to show up because they'll go, hey, those folks care about me. We have got to become churches who meet the needs of the community around us. I find it interesting that Jesus talked so much about money and relationships and things that dealt with people in his time that hit them right at home. In fact, he talked about money more and finances and stuff than he talked about heaven and hell. And yet, sometimes we'll go a whole year without talking about relationships and what God expects of relationships. We have got to do a good job as churches at reaching out into our community and providing things that they need. And in turn, it will do outreach in our community. I hope I've shared with you some things that will help you, some things that will just give you some thought. Maybe I've just encouraged you. Hey, we need to be doing something. A great little book. If you hadn't found it, there's a book called Autopsy of a Dead Church by Thomas Rainer. Absolutely great book. If you have not read that book, you need to read it, and you need to buy a copy for all your leadership. My leadership and I sat down and read this book together and then discussed it, and it was a game changer. You have got to realize things have got to change because if they continue heading the direction they're heading, we're in trouble as churches. I love you. Blessings to you. Trey Morgan at msn.com if you need to email me and ask me questions about something that I brought up. Thank you for being here today.